Welcome back and willkommen zurück to Union Voices, the MEU Berlin Podcast. I'm your host Tabea and I'm really excited to get started with today's topic, the fascinating world of diplomacy. I have the honor to interview a very special guest today, Dr. Michael Linhart, Austria's ambassador to Germany. Over a career spanning several decades, he has represented Austria on various fronts, from assignments in Syria, Greece and France to serving as Austria's foreign minister. Today, he shares his experiences and insights into the evolution of diplomacy. So, Dr. Linhart, welcome again to the podcast, and thank you so much for making the time to be here today.
Thank you. Welcome also from my side, and warm Grüß Gott.
Thank you, and Grüß Gott. For those who might not be familiar with you, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us about your career in diplomacy?
Well, thank you to having me today in your podcast. Well, I'm a career diplomat who started in the foreign ministry as every young diplomat, and in the very beginning we are going to first post to see whether we fit into the system and whether we like the system. So both sides are challenging us abroad. I was in Ethiopia, and I started with the real first posting, which was in Damascus in Syria. Went on to Croatia. I had then a very fascinating period in Austria in the cabinet of Foreign Minister Schüssel and then Prime Minister. I continued then in Damascus again. This was my first ambassador's posting. I took over the development cooperation in Austria, continued then with the ambassador in Greece, became then again head of the strategic unit of development cooperation in the ministry, becoming then the Secretary General. From there, going to Paris ambassador. Then I had this call on a very short notice to become a foreign minister. And after that, I went to Berlin, where I'm still serving in the Austrian embassy.
Okay, great. Well, that are a lot of places you've been to and a lot of responsibility I can imagine you had over the course of your life so far. You already said that it was challenging to be in diplomacy. What made you want to go into this field?
Well, there are, of course, several criteria or dimensions that inspired me. Of course, first, I was a son of an ambassador, so I saw from the very beginning on what it means to be a diplomat, what it means to move around in the world, and more or less what is the job like. But I was also from the very beginning on interested in politics, and I was always fascinated on how much foreign policy is influencing our life, our policy, internal policy in Austria, as much as internal policy is also shaping our way of making foreign policy, how we introduce our positions in Europe and worldwide. And of course, there was somehow some fascinating side was as well to discover different worlds, different cultures. Somehow adventure was also within the motivation to go abroad in different countries. It's of course always an adventure to go to some countries like Syria, Ethiopia, or in war times in Croatia.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So you mentioned already that you were the son of an ambassador. How was that growing up? You said it was a lot of moving around. How did that influence your childhood and your wish to also go into this career?
Well, that is the little story of my father, who said when I started to talk, he asked me, what would you like to become? I said, my answer was blah, blah, mat. He liked it very much. I always talked about that. But for me, it was never a problem to move around. Of course, you have friends everywhere, but real good friends are staying. I'm still in touch with friends that I had when I was 12, 14 years old. We are still in touch. The most important was to have a home, a good home, an Austrian home somehow. Was to have a good basis. The school was never a real problem because my parents decided to give us a French system. The French system is very close to the Austrian, and you have French schools, lycées worldwide. So that was the best way to have a good education. And at some point, I changed then into the Austrian system when my father was in Baghdad, and I went to boarding school in Austria. But I was always happy to spend my holidays with my parents and at the posting. We never wanted to go on holidays in Austria. We always wanted to spend it in the country where my father was posted.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine that would be more exciting, more adventurous than being in Austria.
It is an opportunity. For me, I always saw it as an opportunity to have the possibility to discover different countries, cultures, societies, surroundings. So that was the fascinating part.
Mm-hmm. I can speak of that too.
Yeah.
Maybe growing up when you were younger, moving around so much and traveling that much might not have been that normalized yet. So do you believe that being able to see and experience and learn that many cultures and languages, that changed you as a person, that made you different from other people?
Well, I would. My first answer would be it made me a very self-confident Austrian and European because I saw the world. I saw positive parts of the world, but it made me more and more convinced that the world that we are coming from, and which is our home world, with all the values that we have all around, with the security that are around, are worthwhile to be defended, to be proposed to other societies, and to fight for it. And we see that this is even important in our days. It is somehow all our security, all our well-being that we have in Europe, which is depending on that. And if you're abroad, you can more easily compare it. You can see the advantages. Of course, you can learn a lot. You become maybe more open, but becoming a real, true Austrian, I became that abroad and in the French schools.
I can see that. I really, yeah.
You can understand it.
That sense, yeah. You learn to appreciate what you have back home when you see other places too.
Yeah.
So,
but it doesn't mean that everything is that all what we have needs to be is as important as we sometimes think.
Of course.
The important thing is to see that in other countries there might be some issues which are more important to those people, which they solve in a different way, and might still be good and still be precious for that society. So it's not what I don't mean through that we condemn the way of life that other countries, other societies are having. But I think we can be proud of the well-being that we have developed in our countries.
Yeah.
In our European countries.
Exactly. Solutions that other countries have used might work for them. And I think it's important to let people in other countries decide how they want to do things in their country. So not to impose our way of thinking or our way of living.
Exactly.
So you have said, or you've told me about the different countries, the different places you've been in. So do you have a favorite assignment you had in one of these countries, something that was very memorable to you, something that was very challenging?
Well, I have first to say, I mean, I always I always appreciated all the countries that I have been in. And wherever I have been, I discovered the nice sides of the country. This was the most important for me, to see the positive sides, to meet the people, to talk to the people, to appreciate the people, because I think it's one of the most important things. You have to see the positive, the beauties in the country, the society, and you have to tell the people also that you like it. Was always the basis of my work. Of course, there are sometimes challenging situations where maybe work is not done in the same way or in the same speed as we do it in Austria. But of course, we are, as a diplomat abroad, to be able to challenge certain situations, to be able to live in those situations, and to make the best out of it. And it's also part of our work to experience the life in another country, the life in another society, because this is how you start to understand the country, and this is how you can explain the country in your country. And then, of course, there's a lot to be done, that we explain also our country, policy of our countries in the countries where we serve. And this counts for any of the countries where I've been served, be it Ethiopia or Croatia or Germany.
Yeah. Okay. So you also were part of the Ministry of Foreign Relations, you said. How was that transition, or was that any different than being an ambassador?
Yes, of course. But in our system, we have the headquarters, which is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then we have the embassies. We have always two assignments, or normally we have two assignments abroad, and then we go back for one period into the headquarters, into the ministry. One period is always about 3 or 4 years. It's not always regular. Sometimes you go just for one assignment abroad, and you come back to the headquarters if they need you. So for us, it is important to go back to the headquarters also to get touch ground in Austria, to see on the ground how the situation is also in Austria. And we have work to be done in the ministry, because there we have the foreign minister. The foreign policy is shaped in the ministry, and the informations are coming from the embassies. In the embassies, we do the lobbying work, but we do it also with the different colleagues, with the colleagues in the different departments in the ministry. But the system in generally said is we gather the informations abroad, we try to comment them, we recommend them to the minister. It goes to the ministry, and there all the information are put together, and the policy is shaped for which the minister is important. I had the privilege to have very interesting posting in the ministry. Whenever I was in the headquarters, I was called back twice or even three times. So it was in the cabinet of the foreign minister and the prime minister. It wasn't as responsible for the development cooperation. It was as a secretary general in the ministry, and then finally also as minister. So I had the luck, the great opportunity to have always very interesting, also responsible postings in our ministry.
Okay, thank you for that answer. So you have grown up in, as you said, countries like Ethiopia, and then your first postings were also in countries that were further away or culturally maybe not as close to Austria. And now you're ambassador to Germany. So how was that transition like to be in a country that culturally is relatively close to Austria?
Well, the basic of the work is always more or less the same. It's observing the situation in the country, lobbying for our policy, trying to gather information, explaining our country. So this is the basic of the work. It's from country to country, of course, then different due to the interests that we have, the presence that we have, and depending on that, we are sent to certain countries. Normally, if the country is a bit more farther away and more exotic, it's more the young diplomats going there, in general, the country is closer to Austria, but there are also some other countries farther away. If the embassy is bigger, if the interests are more important, we normally send from the ministry people who have a longer experience, who are capable also to head a team, a larger team. The teams in embassies where we have more interests are bigger than in some of the countries which are further away. But I would never say that one or the other embassy is more important or less important, because it's an important work that we do generally, and our presence is important everywhere. It's just the way you do the work, which is differently, of course, in Germany than in Ethiopia. It's another society. In Germany it's the same language even for us. So that those are the differences. But still, we have to jump into the society, into the challenges, and try to make our work as good as possible to gather information. And sometimes it's a bit more. It can even be challenging in countries like Germany, because it has to be fast. It has the amount of information that is needed is bigger. The delegations coming are more numbers. So those are the challenges that we have. But in general, we have a way of working which is resembling one to the other. So I would never say that one country is or the work in one country is more important than in another. It's the amount of relations, the intensity of the relations, which is sometimes bigger which is bigger in some countries than in others. So, I mean, for Germany is for us a neighbor, a very important neighbor. Our business is heavily connected to Germany. Most of our exports are going to Germany. So, of course, there are a lot of relations, there are a lot of exchanges, there are continuously delegations coming. So this is the kind of work that we have to do here. If you're farther away, you have less delegations maybe, but nevertheless, you have to see where are the priorities of the informations that are needed and which you are reporting. So there's not less work, but a different work.
Okay, thank you for explaining that so thoroughly. That made a lot of sense now. So you already mentioned that since Germany is a neighboring country to Austria, there is a lot of relations, a lot of delegations, and since there's also, we speak the same language and are very close. So how do you see the role of Austria to Germany, Germany to Austria in the European Union?
I think, well, in general, Germany is a very close partner to us. I mean, our systems are very similar. We are we are how do you say how the companies are shaped are very similar. We have a lot of companies which are led by families, so small and middle-sized companies. We have, as we say, we have the same language. We are living in the same area. We have a federal system as the Germans have. So in many respects, we have probably the same challenges within Europe and towards other regions and continents. So there is a lot of partnership with Germany. And if Germany has problems, we would have problems as well. But we are important for Germany as well. We have the fifth or sixth most important partner in economic relations. We are the second most important partner in in car parts after the United States. So you see the small Austria, how important we are for the car industry in Germany. So they are very much interested in what is happening in Austria as well, which are the laws and regulations that we have, how our systems are working in the social field. So there is a lot of coordination that we have, and a lot of coordination that we also have within the European Union. Most of our positions or many of our positions in the European Union are similar to Germany, and Germany is for us, but I think Austria is much for Germany, a country which where we have a continuous coordination of our policy, foreign policy, internal policy, with all its dimensions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So maybe when you started your career, the European Union as it is today was not really a thing yet. How did you experience that? Did that change international relations when Austria became part of the European Union?
Well, I think for us, joining the European Union was extremely important. We have I think that we have heavily taken profit of joining the European Union, and I think it has also given importance to our policy, to our foreign policy, because we have in the European Union one voice as much as all other countries. So the opinion that we have, the policy that we are having is important, is mattering, and well, we have unanimity in the European Union, so we are an important part of it. So I think for us, for Austria, I could say that we have gained importance, and it makes us stronger, but it gives us also more security in economy, in foreign policy, in common security policy, defending Europe in measures that we can only take together. I think what we see on our continent, if we like to be if we want to have competitivity with other areas, we need to stick together. We need to develop our policies together, our economy together, and that makes us strong. So being in the European Union makes us as well stronger and less vulnerable to influences coming from abroad.
Okay, that also makes a lot of sense. Thank you. So you've mentioned policies a few times already, and said that the policies of each nation influence other nations, influence international relations. Could you give a very clear example of that for us?
Well, one issue where let's say like that, we have a lot of issues which are important for all of Europe and which can only be solved in a common policy. One of the most issues at the moment is migration. We won't be able in Europe to solve migration nation by nation, each nation for itself. We will only be able to solve it in a coordinated policy. It needs a decision that comes from Brussels, and I mean by that we need to take a decision all together, and we have to coordinate this decision. So migration is for me a clear example where we need all the countries together. We need to consider also the interests of all the European countries. Not everywhere we have the same challenge. The situation is not everywhere the same. The interests are different. The people are thinking differently. So all of that has to be taken into account. That's sometimes not easy. It sometimes takes time, but it's important that we're all in the same. That we bring all of our countries, all our people into the same boat. You cannot leave one country behind. This would be a failure then for all of Europe. You can have a second example maybe is the enlargement process in Europe with the Western Balkan countries, where we need the decision of all of Europe, but which is going, if we take this decision in favor of an integration of EU integration of those countries, it will make us stronger, it will make us united, it will make us safer, and this is our aim in Austria. But we need to get all the countries and all the people on board for such a decision.
Mm-hmm. We need to be unified in that decision.
We have to be unified, yes.
Okay, yeah. So you mentioned that these decisions take time because, first of all, you have to get all the countries in the boat. You have to be on the same page, somewhat. Is these differences in opinion the only reason this takes so long, like this decision-making process in the European Union?
Well, you can always try to develop decision-making policies which are maybe faster. But I think in our countries we are living in a democratic system, and also the European system is a democratic system where the majority counts. In some areas we need unanimity. Well, this is the principle on which we're working on, and well, this is sometimes not an easy process, maybe even sometimes a painful process. It's a process that needs compromises. But if you have a continent like Europe with so many different nations and ethnic groups, interests, you have to go through that process. What could make the process maybe faster, in my opinion, is that we do not always need a decision for all the challenges, for all the problems which is taken in Brussels. Sometimes the nations or regions, even regions, can find better solutions, solutions more to the point, going more to the point. Then we should leave it to those nations or regions to solve it in the area. But for those problems which are the big problems, I mentioned, for example, migration or security, we would probably need even more Europe, clear decisions, faster decisions. But I'm still convinced that Europe is a Europe of nations. The diversity is important, makes us strong, makes us sometimes a bit slower, but in general, it makes us strong. It's unity in diversity.
Yeah, I also believe that. if it affects all of Europe, then we should be unified in the response. And yeah. So have you seen changes in diplomacy with the ongoing globalization process and digitization?
Yes, of course. I mean, the world has becoming much faster. The work of diplomats has changed as well, quite a bit since I started. Even more, if I remember how my father was working in diplomacy. In many aspects, the world is. We have to be much faster. We have the instruments for it. Internet, the whole process of digitalization makes it faster, but it's also the medias which are reporting much faster. The world has come closer, has even come into our homes directly through television, social medias. So the response has to be sometimes much faster, as the policy has sometimes to react much faster. But it gives us maybe also the possibility to look forward, to have a communication in which can solve problems faster and maybe avoid even then sometimes problems. But in the global aspect, probably the challenges are still the same. How can we avoid the conflicts? How can we bring peace and prosperity to all the people? And the instruments that we have are different. The time is sometimes also different, and sometimes the problems seem to be bigger and more numerous because the reporting is much faster. Within the daily work, I see differences. If we want to reach the people, how are we doing it today? Communication has become much more important because reporting is there from medias and so on, but communication, what our positions are, explaining our positions and so on, has become more an effort that we as embassies have to do. I think it's important also for us to get involved into social medias to reach the people. And if we want to reach the people, we need we have to find ways how to reach the people. We are very much now event managers as well, where we try to get people close to us, where we try to in some countries further away to explain them our way of life, our values, and we can do that through soft skills like cultural events. But all that is aiming at having contacts, having communication, getting close to the people. It's not always easy to see those differences from 30, 40, 50 years ago. In that period, we had maybe more general reporting on what is going on in the country. Today, we have more explaining reporting. And today, we have probably also more work on how to reach the people in the countries where we are working at.
Right. And so the more explaining of what is going on in another country that you just said is like more what you have to do nowadays. That I believe you said that ties in with there being so many media, so much more international reporting in every country about what's going on in other countries. So do you feel like this do you feel like there being so much reporting on what's going on in other countries has shaped the opinions of the general population about different countries?
Yeah, of course. I mean, people are fed through. They're getting information through channels which sometimes are the only channel that they are using. You have the, how do you call it, the public opinion which is coming through medias, which is always somehow depending on the person who is reporting. But we have to look in behind the scenes. This is the important work that we are doing. Not only what is now reported in the media, but or what the general opinion is telling us. We have to see who are those people who are behind the decisions, who are the people who are shaping policy in the country, who are the people in the next generation. Why did people vote in a certain or way at the elections? What were the subjects? Which were the challenges? Sag mal Sorgen. The concerns. What are the concerns that the people have? So making them voting in a certain way or for certain parties. So all this background is important to be seen, and for that you have really to jump into the society. You have to listen to many people. You have to listen, and not only politicians, not only CEOs. Yeah, you have to go to people on the street and just from different social environments and try to understand what is moving the people and in which direction is it going, and then you can explain why a certain decision has been taken in a certain way. It's not always the way we think that things should be or should be solved, which is the way that is proposed in another country. And to understand that and to explain it and to react to it, and finally within Europe to find also then the compromise in shaping the policy is what we try to do, or at least where we try to give contributions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I hope I'm understandable.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. You have to be the one to critically question what is going on and be the one to say this is why it is going on. Yeah. So you briefly mentioned next generations. Now I'm curious, what do you think do future diplomats need to be successful in this complex world we're living in?
Well, my general saying was always, we need cool guys. Cool means that we need people who are able to move in a sometimes difficult environment, people who are good communicators, giving interviews, making speeches, talking to journalists, making contacts, good networkers. This is important. People who like to go out, who like to go for challenges. I think there's rarely an evening where I just stay at home. Whenever I have the chance to go out, or whenever I get an invitation to, be it private or to any event, I try to go there if I see some relevance in it. So going out, going to the people, but also we need people who are able to survive in sometimes more difficult situations, who are able to help people in difficult situations. We need people who have fantasy in creating events, because through the events we are able also to reach the people. Of course, with a certain basis of knowledge, you have to have a certain knowledge, but the most important is to be flexible, to respond to challenges which are brought to you, which are coming up, to react fastly. I mean, I used to say we are generalists. We are not specialists in certain fields, but we are generalists. We're talking about every every hour is a different subject, completely different. So, and you have to be open for that. You have to be open for societies and not always saying, well, the only good way of living is the one in my small village. This is the best way. But that's the comfortable position, but you won't find it in diplomacy. And it starts in the neighborhood, and of course it's again different in other countries. But nothing gives you more awards than having the possibility to live in these different conditions. But this is what I was always trying to recommend young people, or when we were hiring young diplomats, I was looking at more at those skills, in personality skills, which were important to me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That you also answered my next question already, which was about advice you'd give young people that are interested in diplomacy. So,
well, there's maybe one more. I used to say,
yeah?
just be open, and accept that there are different ways of life, which might not, and every society might have another way of life, which is the right way in this.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are bases for us in societies, in like human rights and so on, which are extremely important. But sometimes you have a different way of solving certain problems, and this is important. So openness is important. And whenever I went to a country, I said the first thing that you need to have is, or that you have to show, is that you like the country, that you like the people, that you appreciate the people, and you have to show them that you like them. It doesn't mean that you are that you accept the regime or the policy. Doesn't mean it. But if you appreciate the country and the people, this is the first step. And when the people see that you like to be in the country, then you find openness, and it will be awarded by the responses you're getting from those people. And that makes your work then easy, and is going to fulfill the demands that are put into that job.
That is a very beautiful way to put it. So I have one last question, which is there, and if so, what is it? One piece of wisdom that you think that you've learned in your time in diplomacy that applies to everyone and not just diplomats?
Well, that's difficult to say. Maybe I'm just choosing one issue. We are, especially when we are away in countries a bit farther away, in more difficult countries, in exotic countries, we are there with smaller teams. It's extremely important to have a good team, to have a good understanding within the team, because then you can make a good work. So for me, the principle was always, if I want to have a good life, then my people need to have a good life as well. So it's not I make everything. I try to make my work comfortable, and everything else my collaborators have to do. Now it's important that everyone is feeling well, is satisfied, has a work with which he is satisfied, which he likes, and that we all work together. I used to say that no one is more important than the other. If there's one in the team, and especially on hardship posts, if there's one who is not functioning, then it might be a problem, or it might be the hell for the whole team. So give a good time to everybody, then you will have a good time for yourself. And I think this is valuable. This counts for every job, in every team, and the team makes you strong.
Mm-hmm. Also very nicely put. Like the saying goes, I think, chain is only as strong as the weakest link. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I think that is a great way to close this. Thank you again so much for making time for us today. And I hope you'll have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And I encourage all the young people to join the diplomatic service. It's, for me, still the nicest profession that I could have in my life.
Thank you. Well, you heard the ambassador.